You have 1,247 friends on Facebook, 892 followers on Instagram. Your phone buzzes with messages all day long. You're more connected to other human beings than anyone in history. So why do you feel so alone? Right now, as you're watching this video, millions of people are sitting in rooms just like yours, scrolling through feeds full of smiling faces and perfect moments, feeling more isolated than if they were stranded on a desert island. We've created the most connected generation in human history, and somehow they're also the loneliest. The statistics are staggering. Recent surveys suggest that more people report feeling lonely today than during the height of the pandemic lockdowns. Think about that for a moment. When we were literally forced apart, we felt less alone than we do now when we can instantly connect with anyone, anywhere, anytime. Your grandmother, who might have known 50 people in her entire lifetime, likely felt more genuinely connected than you do with your thousands of digital contacts. Your great-grandfather, who might have gone weeks without seeing another soul while working the land, probably experienced less existential loneliness than you do in a city of millions. We've created the greatest communication network in human history, and we're using it to feel more disconnected than ever before. This isn't just a personal problem. It's a species-level crisis that's rewiring how we understand human connection itself. But here's what's really happening to us, and why understanding it might be the key to feeling truly connected again. Let me show you just how deep this crisis runs, and the numbers might shock you more than you expect. Researchers suggest that loneliness levels have been climbing steadily for decades, but the acceleration in recent years is unprecedented. Some studies indicate that significant portions of young adults report having no close friends, a statistic that would have been unimaginable just a generation ago. We're talking about people in their 20s and 30s who can't name a single person they could call in a crisis. But this isn't just about having friends, it's about the quality of human connection. Surveys suggest that many people report feeling lonely even when surrounded by others. They're at parties feeling isolated, in relationships feeling disconnected, in crowded offices feeling invisible. The loneliness isn't about being physically alone, it's about feeling fundamentally unseen and unknown by other human beings. The health implications are staggering. Medical researchers have found that chronic loneliness impacts your body in ways that rival smoking or obesity. Lonely people show higher levels of inflammatory markers, compromised immune function, and increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Some studies suggest that prolonged loneliness can reduce life expectancy by several years, making it one of the most serious public health crises of our time. But perhaps most concerning is what's happening to our capacity for connection itself. Mental health professionals report seeing increasing numbers of people who struggle with what they call social atrophy. They've literally forgotten how to form deep relationships. Like muscles that weaken from disuse, our social skills are deteriorating from lack of practice. Young people especially seem to be struggling with something previous generations took for granted, the ability to form meaningful friendships. College counselors report that students increasingly arrive at university without the social skills necessary to navigate roommate relationships, form study groups, or maintain friendships beyond surface-level interactions. The workplace has become another arena where this crisis manifests. Despite open office designs intended to encourage collaboration, many workers report feeling more isolated than ever. They're surrounded by colleagues but lack genuine professional relationships. The rise of remote work has only accelerated this trend, with many people going days without meaningful face-to-face interaction. Dating has been transformed into what some researchers call a connection simulation. Apps promise to connect you with potential partners, but many users report feeling more lonely after using them than before. The gamification of romance, swiping, matching, ghosting, has created a culture where human beings are treated like disposable commodities rather than complex individuals worthy of deep understanding. Perhaps most paradoxically, the loneliness epidemic seems worst among those who are most digitally connected. Heavy social media users consistently report higher levels of loneliness and social isolation than those who use these platforms minimally. The more connected we become online, the more disconnected we feel in real life. Family relationships have also been affected. Multi-generational households, once the norm throughout human history, have become rare in many cultures. Extended families that once provided natural support networks have been scattered by economic mobility and career demands. Many people now live hundreds or thousands of miles from their closest relatives, relying on occasional video calls to maintain family bonds. The community structures that once provided natural connection points have largely disappeared. Religious attendance has declined dramatically in many regions. Neighborhood associations, local clubs, and civic organizations that once brought people together regularly have seen membership plummet. The informal gathering places, front porches, local diners, and community centers have been replaced by private spaces and digital interactions. Urban design itself seems to work against human connection. Many modern cities are designed for cars rather than pedestrians, creating environments where chance encounters are rare. Suburban neighborhoods with large houses and private yards minimize opportunities for casual social interaction. The third places that sociologist Ray Oldenburg identified as crucial for community, spaces that aren't home or work where people naturally gather, have become increasingly scarce. Children are growing up in this disconnected environment, learning social skills through screens rather than face-to-face interaction. Some educators report that kids struggle with basic social cues, reading facial expressions, understanding tone of voice, navigating conflict resolution, that previous generations developed naturally through playground interactions and neighborhood friendships. The economic system has also contributed to this isolation. The gig economy, while offering flexibility, often lacks the natural camaraderie that develops in stable workplace relationships. People change jobs frequently, move cities for opportunities, and prioritize career advancement over community ties. The result is a highly mobile but socially rootless population. Even our entertainment has become increasingly solitary. Instead of gathering to watch shows together, we binge-watch alone. Instead of playing games with friends, we play online with strangers. Instead of sharing meals, we eat while scrolling through our phones. The activities that once brought people together have been individualized and digitized. The most troubling aspect of this crisis is how normalized it has become. Many people assume that feeling disconnected and lonely is simply part of modern life. They've accepted isolation as the price of progress, connection deficit as the cost of convenience. But this isn't inevitable. Humans aren't designed for isolation. We're the most social species on the planet. The loneliness epidemic isn't a natural consequence of technological advancement. It's the result of specific choices about how we've chosen to build our society and structure our lives. Understanding why our brains crave connection and why digital substitutes leave us feeling emptier than ever reveals the path back to genuine human community. To understand why we feel so alone in our hyper-connected world, we need to dive deep into the human brain. And what you'll discover will fundamentally change how you think about connection itself. Your brain evolved over millions of years to handle small, tight-knit groups of people. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar's research suggests that humans can maintain meaningful relationships with approximately 150 people, a number that hasn't changed despite having access to billions of potential connections online. Your Paleolithic brain is trying to navigate a digital world it was never designed to understand. When you interact with someone face-to-face, your brain processes an incredible amount of information simultaneously. You're reading microexpressions, interpreting tone of voice, sensing body language, detecting pheromones, and synchronizing breathing patterns. This creates what psychologists call embodied presence, a rich, multi-sensory experience that triggers deep neurological responses associated with safety, trust, and belonging. Digital communication, no matter how sophisticated, captures only a fraction of this information. When you text someone, you're missing about 93% of human communication.
the nonverbal cues that your brain relies on to feel truly connected. It's like trying to enjoy a symphony through a broken speaker that only plays one note. But here's where it gets really interesting. Your brain doesn't just miss this information, it actively fills in the gaps, often incorrectly. When someone takes a long time to respond to your message, your brain might interpret this as rejection, even though they might simply be busy. When you see only curated highlights of people's lives on social media, your brain assumes everyone else is happier than you are. Social media platforms have accidentally created what researchers call parasocial relationships, one-sided emotional connections where you feel like you know someone who doesn't actually know you exist. You follow influencers, celebrities, or even friends of friends, consuming intimate details of their lives and developing feelings of familiarity and connection. But this connection is fundamentally asymmetrical and ultimately unsatisfying. Your brain treats these parasocial relationships as if they're real social connections, which can actually reduce your motivation to form genuine relationships. Why invest the effort in getting to know your neighbor when you already feel connected to hundreds of people online? The problem is that parasocial relationships provide the illusion of connection without any of the reciprocal support, understanding, or genuine intimacy that real relationships offer. The psychology of social validation has been completely disrupted by digital platforms. Throughout human history, social approval came from people who actually knew you, your family, friends, and community members who understood your character, your struggles, and your growth over time. Now, validation comes from strangers who judge you based on carefully curated snapshots of your life. This creates what psychologists call external validation dependency. You become addicted to likes, comments, and shares from people who don't actually know or care about your well-being. Your self-worth becomes tied to metrics controlled by algorithms rather than genuine relationships built on mutual understanding and care. The comparison trap has become exponentially worse in the digital age. Social comparison theory shows that humans naturally evaluate themselves relative to others. It's how we gauge our progress and social standing. But historically, you compared yourself to people in your immediate community who faced similar challenges and constraints. Now you're comparing yourself to the highlight reels of millions of people worldwide. You see the vacation photos, but not the debt they incurred. You see the promotion announcement, but not the years of struggle. You see the perfect relationship posts, but not the arguments and compromises. Your brain is constantly telling you that everyone else is living a better life, creating a persistent sense of inadequacy and isolation. The attention economy has turned human connection into a commodity. Social media platforms profit by keeping you engaged, which means they're incentivized to show you content that triggers strong emotional responses, often negative ones. The algorithm doesn't care if you feel connected or lonely. It only cares if you keep scrolling. This has created what researchers term connection theater, performances of relationship rather than genuine connection. People share moments designed to appear connected rather than actually connecting. They're more concerned with documenting experiences than experiencing them, more focused on appearing social than being social. The neuroscience reveals something particularly disturbing. Chronic loneliness actually changes your brain structure. Studies suggest that prolonged social isolation can alter neural pathways, making you more sensitive to social threats and less capable of trusting others. Loneliness literally rewires your brain to expect rejection and interpret neutral social cues as hostile. This creates a vicious cycle. The lonelier you become, the more your brain interprets social situations as threatening, which makes you more likely to withdraw, which makes you lonelier. Your brain, trying to protect you from social pain, actually creates barriers to the connections that would heal the loneliness. Modern life has also disrupted what psychologists call social synchrony, the natural rhythms of human interaction. Throughout history, people gathered regularly for meals, religious services, seasonal celebrations, and community events. These repeated interactions created predictable opportunities for deepening relationships over time. Now, social interaction has become largely optional and scheduled around individual convenience. We've replaced organic community rhythms with intentional social events that require planning, coordination, and effort. The result is that many people's social lives become sporadic and surface level rather than consistent and deepening. The phenomenon of digital natives, people who grew up with constant digital connection, reveals how profoundly this affects human development. Research suggests that people who learned social skills primarily through digital mediums often struggle with emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, and the kind of patient relationship building that creates lasting bonds. They're experts at managing online personas, but find it difficult to develop the vulnerability and consistency required for deep friendship. They've learned to perform connection rather than experience it. Perhaps most importantly, digital connection lacks what psychologists call co-regulation, the way humans naturally sync their emotional and physiological states when they're physically present together. When you're with someone who cares about you, your nervous systems actually coordinate, helping you manage stress and maintain emotional balance. This co-regulation is impossible through screens. You can share your feelings with someone online, but you can't share their calming presence. You can communicate support, but you can't provide the physical comfort that actually regulates your nervous system and creates feelings of safety and belonging. The result is a generation of people who are incredibly skilled at digital communication, but starving for the kind of embodied, reciprocal, consistent human connection that our brains actually need to feel fulfilled and understood.
Understanding the psychology is just the first step. What makes this loneliness epidemic truly devastating is that we've built entire systems, technological, economic, and social, that actively work against human connection. And most of us don't even realize we're living inside these isolation machines. Let's start with social media algorithms, which have turned human connection into an optimization problem. These systems aren't designed to help you build meaningful relationships. They're designed to maximize your engagement with the platform. The algorithm learns that controversy keeps you scrolling longer than contentment, that outrage generates more clicks than genuine sharing. This creates what researchers call engagement over connection. The content that builds real relationships, patient conversation, vulnerable sharing, collaborative problem-solving, performs poorly in algorithmic systems. Instead, the platforms amplify content that triggers immediate emotional reactions, envy, anger, fear, or superficial amusement. You're being fed a steady diet of interactions designed to stimulate rather than satisfy. The recommendation systems compound this by creating what some call social filter bubbles. Just as you get trapped in echo chambers of similar political views, you get trapped in social circles of similar people living similar lives. The algorithm shows you content from people like you, thinking like you, struggling with the same issues as you. This narrow social exposure prevents the kind of diverse relationships that create resilience and perspective. Dating apps represent perhaps the most direct commodification of human connection. These platforms have turned romantic relationships into a marketplace where people are literally shopping for partners based on a handful of photos and carefully crafted sentences. The psychology is identical to e-commerce. Browse, compare, select, discard, repeat. This shopping mentality has leaked into all forms of relationship building. People approach friendships and even professional relationships with a consumer mindset, constantly evaluating whether someone provides enough value to justify continued investment. The result is a culture of disposable relationships, where people are discarded at the first sign of inconvenience or conflict. Economic systems have been restructured in ways that systematically isolate people. The gig economy, while offering flexibility, has destroyed the natural social bonds that form in staple workplaces.
When you're constantly changing jobs, working remotely, or managing multiple part-time positions, you never develop the deep workplace friendships that previous generations took for granted. Housing markets have pushed people into longer commutes, smaller living spaces, and more frequent moves. The average person now moves multiple times per decade, making it difficult to develop the kind of long-term community relationships that require years of consistent proximity. You're constantly starting over socially, never staying anywhere long enough for superficial connections to deepen into meaningful bonds. Urban planning has optimized cities for efficiency rather than community. Modern neighborhoods are designed around car travel rather than walking, eliminating the casual encounters that naturally occur when people move through shared spaces on foot. Suburban developments with large private yards and attached garages mean neighbors can live side by side for years without meaningful interaction. The decline of third places, spaces that aren't home or work where people naturally gather, has removed crucial community infrastructure. Local coffee shops have been replaced by chain stores focused on quick transactions. Public parks and libraries have reduced funding and programming. Community centers, religious institutions, and civic organizations have seen dramatic membership declines. Retail environments have been optimized to discourage lingering and social interaction. Self-checkout systems eliminate even brief conversations with cashiers. Online shopping removes the social aspects of commerce entirely. The places where people once made casual connections through shared activities have been redesigned to minimize human interaction in favor of efficiency. Educational systems have inadvertently contributed by emphasizing individual achievement over collaborative learning. Students are trained from an early age to view peers as competition rather than community. Social skills, emotional intelligence, and collaborative problem-solving receive far less attention than standardized test performance and individual academic metrics. The healthcare system treats loneliness as an individual pathology rather than a social epidemic. Mental health services focus on helping people cope with isolation rather than addressing the systemic causes of disconnection. The medical model assumes the problem is within the individual rather than within the community structures that shape their social environment. Entertainment has become increasingly individualized and passive. Streaming services encourage binge-watching alone rather than gathering to watch programs together. Social gaming happens online with strangers rather than in person with friends and family. Even social media consumption is typically a solitary activity despite its social veneer. The work culture of productivity optimization has eliminated many of the social aspects of professional life. Lunch breaks are shorter or skipped entirely. Office holiday parties and team-building activities are seen as inefficient use of time. Remote work, while offering benefits, has removed the casual interactions that build workplace relationships. Perhaps most insidiously, these systems create what economists call collective action problems. Individual businesses, platforms, and institutions that prioritize human connection over efficiency would likely lose competitive advantage to those that optimize for metrics rather than relationships. The system rewards isolation and efficiency while penalizing the time and space needed for genuine community building. Consumer culture has convinced people that happiness and fulfillment can be purchased rather than cultivated through relationships. Marketing messages consistently suggest that the right product, service, or experience will provide the satisfaction that actually comes from human connection. People are encouraged to solve emotional needs through consumption rather than community. The result is that we're living inside interconnected systems that profit from our disconnection, optimize for our isolation, and reward our withdrawal from genuine community.
Fighting loneliness isn't just a personal challenge. It's resistance against the fundamental organizing principles of modern society. Here's the truth that the systems profiting from your isolation don't want you to know.
Humans are the most social species on the planet, and your capacity for deep connection isn't broken, it's just been systematically suppressed. You can rebuild authentic relationships, but it requires understanding that this isn't a personal failing you can fix with an app or a productivity hack. The first step is recognizing that loneliness isn't a character flaw, it's a rational response to an irrational social environment. Your brain is working exactly as it should, craving the embodied presence and consistent community that humans have needed for millions of years. The problem isn't with you, it's with systems that have prioritized efficiency over humanity. Start small, but be intentional. Real connection requires what researchers call consistent proximity over time. Choose a few people in your life and commit to regular, unmediated interaction. Have weekly coffee with a colleague. Call a family member every Sunday. Join a group that meets regularly, not to network or achieve something, but simply to be present with the same people repeatedly. Create connection rituals that prioritize relationship over productivity. Share meals without devices present. Take walks with friends where the goal is conversation, not fitness. Practice what psychologists call active constructive responding. When someone shares good news, respond with genuine excitement and curiosity rather than immediate advice or shifting attention to yourself. Challenge the consumer mentality around relationships. Stop evaluating people based on what they can provide for you and start focusing on how you can show up consistently for them. Real friendship isn't transactional. It's about being present through both celebration and struggle, offering support without keeping score. Reclaim physical spaces for community. Make your home a place where people want to gather rather than a perfectly curated showcase. Support local businesses that encourage lingering and conversation. Advocate for public spaces designed for human interaction rather than efficient throughput. Most importantly, understand that building authentic community requires vulnerability and patience. In a world trained for instant gratification, real relationships develop slowly through repeated interactions, shared experiences, and mutual support during difficult times. You can't swipe your way to meaningful connection. The research on community building is encouraging. When people commit to consistent, face-to-face interaction with the same group over time, loneliness decreases dramatically and life satisfaction increases significantly. Your brain remembers how to connect. It just needs practice. This isn't about abandoning technology or returning to some idealized past. It's about making conscious choices to prioritize the embodied, reciprocal relationships that your nervous system actually needs to feel safe and satisfied. Every time you choose presence over performance, vulnerability over validation seeking, and consistency over convenience, you're not just improving your own well-being, you're participating in a quiet revolution to restore human connection in a disconnected world. Your relationships are your life. They're how you process experiences, find meaning, and build resilience. In a world designed to isolate you, the simple act of showing up consistently for other people becomes a radical act of human reclamation. Connection is possible. Community is achievable. You just have to choose it consistently over the systems that profit from your loneliness.